Okay. One of the interesting things about going to these outdoor antique shows, especially I've noticed this with Ventura, is it does not take a lot of money. So if you can scrape together, say, even $100, that can be plenty for hunting and making a lot of money. Let me show you some of the items I found at Ventura that were surprisingly inexpensive, and yet they're quite valuable. First of all, this is a wall sconce. It's made of iron. It's in the Spanish Revival style. Anytime you see this kind of shield work and the kind of a wrought iron look, see how these are curved around, you've got something of value because people love Spanish Revival. I went up to the table, I saw this laying there, and I said, hey, how much is the coat rack? And the guy looks at me kind of strange and says, 10 bucks. So for 10 bucks I got this, and he goes, by the way, it's not a coat rack, it's a wall sconce, which I kind of already knew. Anyway, it needs sockets and bulbs and all that, but I got this for $10, and I'll bet you, just like it is, it'll sell for close to $100 on eBay. So we'll be watching this one. Another item, which I also got for $10, was this lacquered box. And this is an absolute beauty. This is from the Meiji period. It's all black Urushi lacquer. Looks a little bit, there's a few little scuffs and scrapes. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you've got a quality piece. All this is inlaid mother of pearl. There's birds, pheasants, there's insects, there's flowers. Absolutely gorgeous little box. For $10, I couldn't believe it. I grabbed it. I didn't even try to talk the price down. There's no mark on it because it dates before 1891. So anyway, this beautiful little box was purchased for $10, and I am sure that it's going to bring about $300. That was $10. What's interesting is I got a number of $10 items. I also got this Navajo weaving for $10. Now the way you tell Navajo weavings, you have the side serging here, you have knots at the corners unless these are lost. These are many times lost. And you'll also have what are known as lazy stitches. Now I suspect that this particular weaving was at one time washed, which hurts its value, but it's still basically intact, so it's in good shape. So for $10, it's still a heck of a deal. All Navajo weavings also have what's called a lazy stitch. It's like a diagonal line where they switch from one wool to the other. So whenever you have the combination of knotted corners, which can easily be lost, these are many times gone, but look for the side serging. If you don't find this serging, you have a weaving from Mexico or South America. So you want to make sure that you at least have your side serging and that you have your lazy stitches in the rug. The next item I got, which was almost, you know, just ridiculously cheap, is this beautiful heavy brass box that's made in China. It's probably close to 100 years old. In fact, my dog Nugget just seems to love the noise on this. I don't know what is with the noise on this metal, but what do you think, Nugget? Do you like that? He's constantly checking out all my antiques. But the inside of the lid has got perforated holes. This was to hold a piece of wet cloth, which would help keep the tobacco moist. It's got a lot of really good weight, and it's in beautiful condition. I think I got this for $20, and the entire surface has been fully engraved by hand. I would not be surprised if this should bring close to $300, and I think it was $20. Not bad. Very happy with that item. Let me show you another item that was pretty much a no-brainer, because you know, you don't have to be an antique expert to make money, that is for sure. Here I got this beautiful antique cane. It's got sterling silver here. In fact, the dealer goes, hey, that's marked sterling on that. So it's got a piece of sterling here. It's got an old piece of horn antler. It's got a nice old piece of wood, some sort of hardwood, and it's got the original tip on the bottom. That was $40. This will easily bring over $100 just because of what it is, an antique cane with sterling mounts. And then surprisingly, you know, it was an amazing day for inexpensive items that have really good value. I went up to a table, and the guy had two of these along with a lot of other items sitting on his table. Most of these are new reproduction fakes. These two just happen to be real. This one here is from the 1920s. It's got a typical kind of construction which you find in Oriental arts from that time period. A kind of a piece of sheet metal covering the bottom. You can see where it was hand worked over the edges. And when you look at the actual bronze itself, it's got nice detail. There's no muddy features. It's not as crisp as some I've seen, but overall it's obviously a good piece. I bought it, I think I paid $120 for both, or $60 each, and these should each bring $200 to $300, maybe a little more on this one. Let me show you this one here. This one has really got characteristics which show the age. If you look underneath, it's got the old filler. It's got high point wear where it was just slightly moved around, but it's got decent quality on every level. Everything's nicely finished off. It's not as crisp as some, but like I said, this is from the 1920s or so, maybe a hair earlier. The new ones are just muddy and ugly, and they have no class or style. The new ones are just terrible. But the older ones have some interesting work in them. And you can also tell when you look at a piece like this, when they're cast in a mold, it took a lot of finishing because this here had to be made in several molds and pieces attached, and it took work. So anytime you find a nice old piece with nice patina and it's got some age, you're going to make some money on that. I'll show you the silver items I got. These items here also came from the show. Whenever you see silver that has not been polished in a long time, it's going to look black. This happens to be made in Mexico. It's a little figural ashtray in the form of a little garden wheelbarrow. And it's got nice repoussé work here of flowers. And on the back it's just simply marked Silver Mexico. In Mexico sometimes they mark it 925, sometimes you'll find Tosco marks. But the most important thing is you always want to, silver is usually a little bit thin, a little bit tinny, because the metal itself was always expensive. So whenever you get a little piece like this, I bought it for $50. I may have paid a little on the high side, but the weight's there, so even if I'm close to the edge, the weight's going to save me on this. In fact, I think it'll probably scrap out at 75, something like that. So it was a no-brainer to buy it for $50. Then I picked up this small silver snuff box. Amazingly, this was only $50. And you remember how I showed you the loop for looking at marks and the better loop for looking at smaller marks? When I bought this, the guy only knew of one hallmark here on the inside. This thing actually has hallmarks all over it. They're just hidden. There's one here along the edge. There's another one on the other side of the interior of the lid. And this little snuff box dates to probably right before the American Civil War. It's probably continental silver. I haven't identified the hallmarks yet. But for $50, a handmade silver box, it was a no-brainer. Anytime you get a silver snuff box, you've got at least $100, if not $200 or $300, if they're old and in good shape. The next sterling silver item is this picture frame. In fact, over the years, I've made a lot of money on these picture frames because many times people will see the word sterling, but they just really don't realize how much metal's in it. I bought this for $20, being two sides. I had looked at it real quick and said, $10 for each side, is that worth it? Yes, that's worth it. Each side of this is going to weigh probably about an ounce. So there's about 2 ounces here. This would scrap out at $40 or $50. So the fact it has a little ding here or there wouldn't even matter. When you're talking silver, if it has the weight, you've got the value. Now I'll show you one of the more fun pieces. I always like Indian baskets. So when I was there, I found this little Apache basket. It was in a guy's booth. What's interesting is it has an old collection or museum number on the bottom. Most of the time you don't see this. It doesn't hurt the value, it doesn't help the value, because anyone can add any little markings. But what this has going for it is it's in really nice shape. You don't see any broken stitches. There's no damage. And overall it's intact without excessive wear or anything of that sort. The weave is tight. The basket size is small and it's appealing. I bought it for $100. I think it's worth about $250. Indian baskets are really hard to find. So anytime you get a chance to find an old Apache basket and it's in good shape and you can get it for under $100, you want to grab it. There's a number of different tribes and it really doesn't matter which one it is. What matters in these baskets is the more complicated and the more beautiful they are, the more valuable they are. I've had some Indian baskets which, you know, went $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 because they were big and covered with black widow spiders woven into it with red and black grasses. This one being small and simple, you want to be more conservative. When they get big and interesting motifs, they get very valuable. The next item I will talk about are these rose medallion teapots, and these are kind of a good lesson item. I probably shouldn't have bought them. When I bought them, they had been converted into lamps, and you see they put it like this, and then this, okay, each one had a little top on it like this, and then it had a socket sticking up like that. Well, I bought the pair for $100 from a friend who always sells me good stuff. And even though I was kind of on the edge, since he's a friend and sometimes he holds good stuff for me, I always try to buy something from his booth. So even when I was getting these, I was saying, oh, I know they're drilled. Should I buy it? Yes, no, yes, no. But since he's a guy who holds stuff for me, I want to maintain that relationship. So I said, well, worst case scenario is I'll make some money and make a sale with him, and he'll be happier with me. Since taking them apart, I discovered that this one has the entire top of the lid gone, and this one here is still intact, but they glued the lid on and drilled it. This is kind of a good lesson, because whenever you find a vase which has been turned into a lamp, or a teapot in this case, you want to realize that you get what you see, and if what you don't see, it may not be there, it's not there many times. So on this teapot here, I paid $100 for the pair. I could probably sell this one right now just like it is for close to $100. If it didn't have the hole drilled in it here and here, on eBay some people are asking $300-400 for one. They date to about 1850 or so, 1870, and these two particular ones have really nice enamel work, but damage is damage, and you want to avoid damage unless you get it cheap, and in this case, I don't know. If I had a chance to do it, I'd probably return them and get my money back, but you can never do that. Once you buy it, it's yours. Over here, we have a collection of antique American Indian arrowheads. What's interesting about this collection is that they're all wired to these old pieces of plywood. When you look at the wire, you can tell that it's got corrosion, and that this arrowhead collection was assembled a long time ago, probably in the 1920s, maybe 1930s, but that's when they were strapped to the board. They didn't make fake arrowheads back then. Today you got to watch out. There's a lot of fakes on the market. There are people called flint knappers. So when you find an old stone tool, you will find it has a natural patina from laying out in the sun and being exposed to the weather for, you know, hundreds of years at times. And these stone tools would lay on the surface of the sand, and the sun would hit it, the rain would hit it, the surface will slightly oxidize. The newer ones don't have that oxidation. Also, what's interesting is on the older arrowheads, when you flip them over, usually one side's in slightly better condition to the other because it's been laying on its side in the sun for many years. There's 184 arrowheads in this collection, and I bought the collection for $300. Some of the better intact points. Now, some of these are broken. You have half an arrowhead here or a piece chipped off it there. But just the few good arrowheads that are worth $40 or $50 a piece, and there's probably 30 or 40 nice arrowheads here, you can see very quickly how they're going to add up to maybe $1,000 or $1,200 in sales. So for $300, it was a really good buy. The broken ones are almost worthless, but the big ones that have a nice shape are $50, maybe $75 to $100 for some of the better ones individually. So whenever you see a collection like this, they quickly count up to 184 at $300. What's that? Less than $2 a piece. Okay, one of the more interesting items I got. It has damage. Don't let damage discourage you. This is enamel which is chipped off. This is more recent damage. That's older damage. But this reminds me very much of a piece of Chinese enamel work which I sold for a lot of money that was damaged, and it was about a year ago. It was a libation vessel, and it was in the shape of a lotus leaf. This one here has the same kind of high quality work, but this time it's got butterflies and flowers, and I think we even have a peach right here, which is typically found in some Chinese works of art. This was $32. In fact, the dealer I got it from told me, I did research on that and it's Japanese and this and that. I looked at it thinking, that's not Japanese, that's definitely Chinese, and that's early. So I bought it for, I think it was $32, and I would bet that this piece brings $200 to $300, as is, with damage. If it wasn't damaged, it might be a $1,500 piece. And one of the last items that I will show you here, I picked up for $20. And what's interesting is, when I'm buying this piece, one of my motivations on it was I actually need a set of Irwin bits, but this set of Irwin bits is probably worth closer to $75 or $100. And back here it's got, let me see how we open this up. Oh, here we go. It has the small bits there, and then down here it's got the larger bits, including an adjustable bit, which you hardly ever see. And so for my $20 investment, I've got something that I will use to restore some of my own antiques, and if I ever want to sell this, it's going to sell easily for $60, $75. Other than that, I think that this was a good load. It was a good weekend. I came home feeling good because I had used my time and my energy and my limited resources to advance myself in this world. And I hope you do the same, and that you find yourself getting up early in the morning and giving it a shot, because if you don't swing, you can't hit. So don't be discouraged even if you don't have a lot of money. Just get out there and do the best you can, and be early. That's your best bet. Anyway, thank you, and I hope to talk to you again very soon.